I married Emily straight out of college. Full of hope and dreams in our small apartment in San Francisco. We were young, ambitious, and in love. Or so I thought at first. Everything seemed perfect. Weekend hikes in Marin, lazy Sundays at Golden Gate Park, and dinners in our tiny kitchen. Experimenting with new recipes, we talked about the future, about buying a house, traveling the world, maybe even starting a family someday. But beneath the smiles, cracks were forming. Small things I ignored. It started with money. Emily loved luxury and I was frugal. She would make comments about my savings, my boring investments, and how she deserved more. I brushed it off, thinking love was more important than cash. Then came the warning signs. Late-night meetings, hushed phone calls, a distant look in her eyes. I was too naive to see what was coming. And by the time I did, it was too late. One crisp autumn morning, Emily sat me down at our small kitchen table. The sun was just rising, painting the city in warm oranges and pinks. But the warmth didn't reach us. She was calm, almost clinical. "I want a divorce," she said. The words hit me like a punch I didn't see coming. I blinked. Why?" she sighed, pushing her coffee cup away. "I'm tired of this life, tired of compromises. I want more, and I think we've grown apart." There was no anger, no shouting. Just a cold finality. My mind raced, trying to protest, to argue, to salvage something, but she was resolute. The lawyers came, papers were signed, and assets were divided. Emily took the house, the joint savings, and most of our shared possessions. I was left with a few boxes of personal items and a handful of stocks she had deemed worthless. Small shares in a tech startup. She rolled her eyes at keep them. She had laughed. "You'll never make anything from them." I shrugged, thinking the joke was on me. Life didn't stop. It moved forward relentlessly. I kept my 9-to-5 job at a small marketing firm in Oakland, going through the motions. Numb but determined nights were lonely. The apartment echoed with memories of laughter, arguments, and promises that now seemed hollow. I sometimes stared at the broker account, the worthless stocks sitting there doing nothing, a bitter reminder of how naive I had been, and how blind Emily was to the real value of things. I didn't hate her, not entirely. I understood her ambitions, her desires, her choices, but a part of me couldn't shake the feeling that she had underestimated me, not just as a partner, but as someone who could endure, adapt, and maybe, just maybe, survive what life threw at him. And as I poured another cup of coffee that evening, staring out at the city skyline, I didn't know that those worthless stocks would one day change everything. I didn't know that the laughable shares Emily discarded would become a symbol of irony, fate, and the unpredictable twists life had in store. I just knew one thing: life was far from over, and sometimes the smallest things can carry the heaviest weight. 3 years had passed since Emily left. The apartment felt emptier with every passing day, but life forced me forward. I kept my routine Oakland mornings, bike rides to San Francisco meetings, deadlines, and lonely dinners at my kitchen table. I barely thought of the stocks, small forgotten investments Emily had laughed at. They were digital ghosts, reminders of a past I didn't want to relive. Then one gray Monday morning, my phone pinged a notification from my broker app. Groggy, I opened it, my coffee slooshed in the mug as my eyes widened. One of those worthless Starbucks, a small AI company I barely remembered buying on a whim, had gone public. The price per share had skyrocketed. My trembling fingers scrolled through the numbers again and again. 8.6 million. My brain refused to process it at first. Was it a glitch? I refreshed. The numbers didn't change. I sank into the kitchen chair, heart hammering. $8.6 million. Those shares Emily had mocked, discarded like trash in the divorce settlement, now had the power to change everything. I stared out the window at the bustling streets of San Francisco below, crowded with cars, people rushing to work. Oblivious to my quiet revelation, irony dripped in every pixel of my screen. I laughed aloud, a mixture of disbelief, relief, and something darker, a vindication I hadn't realized I was waiting for. The following days were a blur of calculations, calls to my broker, and sleepless nights. I reread the original divorce papers, flipping through each line, each clause. How had I been so blind? How had Emily been so sure that the stocks were worthless? She had focused on immediate satisfaction, the house, the cash, the security, while overlooking potential, the unpredictable surge of innovation and timing. It wasn't just money. It was a lesson wrapped in irony. The stocks weren't only valuable, they were life-changing. I could pay off debts, buy a new home, travel, even start a business of my own. My imagination ran wild with possibilities, yet with the thrill came an unexpected weight. The moral dilemma: should I contact Emily? Should I gloat? Or should I quietly enjoy the reward life had tossed my way? Walking through the city that evening, the cool air brushing my face, I noticed everything differently. Streetlights reflected on wet pavement, neon signs glowed against the fog, and every passerby seemed oblivious to the private fortune. Sitting in my broker account, it felt surreal. The city I had known so intimately suddenly seemed bigger, full of opportunities I had never dared to imagine. I knew one thing: this wasn't just luck. It was a turning point, a reminder that sometimes patience, endurance, and underestimated decisions can pay off in ways that no one, not even Emily, could foresee. I held the power now, and the thought sent a shiver down my spine. Life had handed me a twist, a quiet revenge that required no malice, only persistence in the passing of time. And as I closed my laptop that night, staring at the blinking cursor of my broker app, I realized something profound. Emily had left me with a gift she never intended to give. The worthless stocks weren't worthless at all. They were proof that fortune favors those who wait, who endure, and who understand that life's real game is often played in silence. I hadn't spoken to Emily in months. Not since the initial shock of the IPO, and certainly not since the first wave of disbelief wore off. But the universe has a way of forcing the past to collide with the present, and today it did. I dialed her number, hands trembling slightly, my heart racing like a drum in my chest. The line rang once, twice, and then her voice came calm and familiar. "Hello," she said. Nothing else, just a single word, measured, controlled. I cleared my throat, trying to steady my voice. "Hey, I heard you might have seen the news," I said carefully, not wanting to reveal too much, not wanting to gloat outright. There was a pause, then, almost too casually, she replied, "Yeah. I heard the stocks, congratulations." Her tone was polite, but I could hear the tension underneath the careful neutrality. She was trying to maintain. I laughed, a little bitter, a little incredulous. Funny how life turns out, huh? The shares you laughed off, the ones you said would never matter, now they matter more than either of us imagined. Emily was quiet. I could almost picture her expression, the slight narrowing of her eyes, the faint tightening of her jaw. Then she spoke, her voice softening. "I never thought they'd grow." I focused on what was immediate. The house, the cash, the things I could control. I didn't see the long game. I guess I miscalculated. Her words hit me differently than I expected. I wasn't angry anymore, not really. Part of me felt vindicated, yes, but part of me also felt the bittersweet sting of what we had lost. Our marriage, our shared dreams, the life we once imagined. This conversation wasn't about money. It was about recognition, finally. She had admitted that she had underestimated me, and perhaps underestimated the unpredictability of life itself. "I guess we both learned something," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "You underestimated me, and I learned that patience and endurance can sometimes outweigh immediate desire." There was another pause. Then she laughed quietly, a sound that was once familiar, comforting, now tinged with regret. "I suppose so. You always did have more faith than I did. Maybe that's why you're the one holding the golden ticket." I smiled despite the tension. "Golden ticket, yeah. But it's not about revenge, Emily. I don't want it to be. I just want to be honest. I've moved on. And I hope you have too." Her voice softened again. "I have. And I'm glad for you, truly." We ended the call with a quiet understanding, a fragile bridge of civility over the wreckage of our past. For the first time in years, I felt a sense of closure, not triumph, not anger, just clarity. Life had handed me something extraordinary. Yes. But the real lesson wasn't about money or power. It was about endurance, patience, and the quiet strength to wait for the right moment. As I hung up, I leaned back in my chair and let out a long breath. The city outside continued its constant hum, unaware of the private victory I had just experienced. For the first time in years, I felt in control, not of anyone else, but of my own life, my own future. The shares were mine. Yes, but the true wealth was in the understanding that sometimes letting life play out is the most powerful move of all. The morning air in San Francisco was crisp. As I walked down the sidewalk, the fog lifting slowly from the bay. Today I was meeting Emily at a small cafe in North Beach. I wasn't sure what I expected: regret, anger, maybe awkward silence. But I knew I needed this final conversation. It wasn't about money anymore. It was about closure, about reclaiming peace after years of tension and unspoken grievances. I arrived early, taking a seat by the window, watching the city wake. Cars honked, bicycles whizzed past, and baristas called out orders in a cheerful hum. That felt almost alien given the weight in my chest. I sipped my coffee, thinking of the past. The arguments, the laughter, the tears, the bitter split, and, of course, the stock's $8.6 million. The numbers gleamed in my mind, not as a trophy, but as a reminder of irony and timing, of patience and endurance. Emily arrived 10 minutes later. She looked the same, yet older, more composed, as if life had polished her edges. She smiled faintly, and for a moment, the old warmth, the connection we once had, flickered between us. We greeted each other, ordered coffee, and settled into the quiet corner. For a while we talked about mundane things. Work, mutual friends. The city laughter came easily at first, the kind that feels safe, not fraught with history. But then inevitably the topic shifted. I heard about the stocks, she said softly. Not accusing, not envious, just stating a fact. I nodded, yeah. Life has a funny way of turning things around. I paused, then added, but it's not about revenge, Emily. I didn't call to gloat. She studied me for a long moment, then smiled. I know I've had time to think. I miscalculated before I focused on the immediate. Not the long game. You held on, waited. And it paid off. The truth settled between us. A quiet acknowledgement of past mistakes, of growth and of understanding. I realized then that the money, the stocks, the fortune, it was secondary. What mattered was the decision I made now in this moment, about how I wanted the rest of my life to unfold. I leaned back, smiling genuinely. Emily, I don't want to fight over money. I don't want grudges. Life's too short for that. I've learned that letting go can be the greatest wealth. Her eyes softened and she nodded. I get that, and I respect it truly. We sat in silence for a few minutes, letting the city hum around us, letting the weight of the past lift ever so slightly. I realized that this peace, understanding freedom, was worth more than any stock market gain. 8.6 million could buy comfort, travel, luxury, but it couldn't buy closure, nor the satisfaction of choosing integrity over revenge. As we left the cafe, we parted with a handshake that lingered just a moment too long, a quiet smile and mutual acknowledgement that life moves forward, regardless of the mistakes, losses, or betrayals of the past. I felt lighter, freer, as if the city itself breathed with me. The stocks were mine, yes, but the lesson, the real treasure, was in the choice I had made to walk forward unburdened, confident and at peace. And in that choice, I discovered something far more valuable than millions: freedom, dignity, and the unshakable knowledge that sometimes life rewards patience, integrity, and letting go.